Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, my name is Tomas Novotny. I'm the co-owner and co-founder of Regartis. And here with me today is Andrea Schovankova, our key expert on UK Reach. Hi, Andrea. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, everyone.
Great. So I guess most of you already know both of us quite well from our previous webinars and from both webinar series on UK Reach. Today, we will be addressing two key questions. First of all, what options you have to remain UK Reach compliant, and second, what you should be doing right now in terms of strategy and long-term planning to remain compliant. First things first, where we are now. Grandfathering is over. The deadline was in April. Downstream user import notifications are over. The deadline was roughly a month ago. But we will see that there might still be an option to file what would be called a late downstream user import notification. So first of all, to those of you who are able to successfully file your grandfathering notifications or downstream user import notifications, congratulations to you. You bought yourself quite some time before you need to do the full registration. Now, what to do if you didn't meet the deadline and now you find out that you might still want to apply for the downstream user import notification? Well, the UK HSE officially on their website claims that you can still submit a downstream user import notification even if you missed the deadline. This screenshot I took something like 30 minutes ago. So this is really an official communication of the UK HSE that the downstream user import notification can still be submitted. To be perfectly honest, I would be really wondering how a lawyer or a court would be looking at this, because I really cannot see any legal background for this, because as far as we are aware, the legal text of UK Reach hasn't been changed to reflect this. So the only explanation I have for this is that the UK authorities will simply not enforce. They will not check when you file the downstream user import notifications. When did you submit them? But of course, please don't rely on this information. It's just my personal opinion, and especially it might change over time. The fact that maybe the authorities are not checking it now doesn't mean that in 1 or 2 years they cannot come and retrospectively check whether your downstream user import notifications were filed in time and according to the legal provision. But officially, the UK HSE communicated this news. In theory, you can still submit the downstream user import notification deadlines. Technically, it is definitely possible. This option is still open in the UK Reach IT or the UK Comply with Reach system. There is no deadline specified for this late downstream user import notification, but you are advised to do so as soon as possible if you found out that you still need the downstream user import notification. Don't forget that this instrument of DUIN is only for importers who imported in 2019 or 2020. That means that no new importers or new customers, if you filed your downstream user import notifications through an only representative, no new importers or no new customers can be covered. So if you exported as a Czech company, as we are, to one customer in the UK in 2019 and 2020, you can still only be exporting to that particular customer under your downstream user import notification. If you want to expand and export to more customers in the UK, they would need to be covered either by their own downstream user import notifications if they filed them, or they would need to submit registration, or you can submit your registration for them through an only representative, of course. But you cannot simply cover new customers, new importers with downstream user import notifications if they didn't already import the substances in 2019 or 2020. If you are covered either by grandfathering or downstream user import notifications, then you don't need to submit full registration until October 2023, 2025, or 2027, depending on your tonnage band and the hazard profile of the substances in question. I don't think we need to spend much time on this. We covered this so many times earlier that I just put it here in the presentation so you have everything in one place. So 3 registration deadlines now apply to you. And now the most outstanding part for the time being, what you should be doing right now. 3 simple steps. First step is to define your full registration strategy. If you haven't done so, give it a thought whether you want to start filing your full registrations now, whether you want to distribute them over time, or maybe wait as long as possible. There are 2 principal strategies, completely opposite. First one is passive, dormant, waiting, whatever we call it. I can see 3 most frequent reasons why companies are choosing this strategy to wait. First reason might be that you might want to wait until the deadline gets closer to see whether the registration is needed at all, because some of you might have filed the downstream user import notifications or grandfathering notifications just to be on the safe side, to see how your business goes in the UK, whether your business grows. So we filed the downstream user import notifications for a number of companies who just filed it for substances which they export in 10, 20, 50, 100 kilos quantities per year. So they don't hit the registration threshold of 1 ton, but they just filed it to be on the safe side. If their business grows in the UK, that they don't need to register immediately and they can benefit from the extended registration deadlines. Another valid reason might be that you might want to wait for others to join or to register, especially you might want to wait for the lead registrant to register first, or simply to wait how many registrants there are, also to see what the final costs might be, so you are able to calculate the overall costs of your UK REACH compliance and, of course, factor it into your prices. Another quite frequent reason I can think of is that you might want to wait for certain data to become available after 12 years since they were used in a registration in the EU. We got a question before the webinar particularly to this, so I will get back to this later on. Just checking the Q&A's window, I can see a comment from Paul that a speaker from HSE yesterday said that the HSE has not yet decided whether there will be a hard deadline for downstream user import notifications. Thank you, Paul. Yes, we heard that from different sides. Also last week, somebody from one of our webinars was asking HSE directly, and they confirmed that the late downstream user import notifications are still possible and that there is no deadline. So thank you for this comment. So we will get back to the 12-year data protection period and how you can benefit from that. But first things first, let's cover the second principal strategy. If you don't want to wait, on the other hand, you might want to be active with your registrations. And there are, again, several reasons why you might want to decide to be really active and start early. First of all, if you already know that you will need to register, so you have substances that you place on the UK market in high quantities, strategic substances, UK is a strategic market for you, you might want to be on the safe side and register early to make sure that you don't get under any time pressure, you don't get into any data sharing issues, data sharing discussions or troubles, just to be on the safe side. It is often also typical for lead registrants to be active, lead registrants or data holders, because they already have the data. So they either want to be among the first ones to register to be able to claim the lead registrant role again, or newly, if they didn't do so under EU REACH. The data holders might also want to make all potential co-registrants aware that they have existing data that they can share with them. And EU REACH registrants with existing REACH dossiers typically also tend to be active because simply they have everything in place. So why wait? Another reason might be your cash flow. If you want to distribute your overall UK REACH registration costs over time, you might also want to start early with some of your substances, especially if your product portfolio for UK Reach is broad. Once you have your registration strategy set, the next step, depending again when to take this next step, would be Article 26 inquiry, so filing an inquiry dossier to UK HSE, which will effectively put you into the substance group, so you will get contacts to potential co-registrants. Now we have to distinguish two groups of potential co-registrants, or maybe three even. Those of you who have grandfathering notifications, you already are part of the substance groups, so you already are able to see contacts to all potential co-registrants. Those of you who filed only downstream user import notifications, and I'm saying only because the downstream user import notifications do not put you in touch with the other potential co-registrants to get the contacts you need to file the inquiry. Third group of potential co-registrants would be those who decide to skip all those steps and register directly. So what with the inquiry? Should I do it right now or should I wait? I can see two scenarios or two reasons where you might want to start the inquiry or file the inquiry sooner rather than later. And these two reasons are, if you already know that you will need to register, there is no reason to wait because you will need to do the inquiry at some point anyway. And the sooner you do it, the sooner you will be able to see potential co-registrants and especially actively join the data sharing discussions. So you will not be just put in front of a situation where somebody will come and tell you, this is the letter of access cost, this is the CIF agreement, and now just pay. But you will be actively able to nominate the lead registrant. You will be actively able to discuss the data sharing agreement and anything that is going on in the substance group. We covered that in detail in one of our previous webinars. So if you already know that you will need to register, I don't see a reason why waiting with the inquiry. Another reason might be if you already have all analytical data, because this is the most critical part for the inquiry submission. So if you already have analytical data for your substances, I, again, cannot see a reason why wait with the inquiry. So what if you missed the downstream user import notification deadline completely? First option that we covered already is to file the so-called late downstream user import notification. But again, I haven't consulted any lawyer with that, but my personal opinion would be that it is not compliant with the legal provisions of UK Reach. Whether somebody will enforce it or not, that's another question. Likely not, or at least that's what the UK HSE claims. Another option, if you missed the downstream user import notification deadline, which is perfectly in line with the UK Reach legal text, and it is not much more complicated than the DUIN itself, would be filing a full registration, which might, on the first sight, sound like a lot of work. It might sound horrific, but there is an important clause or important claim by the UK HSE that if you are a new registrant of an existing substance, so that's the most typical scenario. You are trying to register a substance that is already existing under EU Reach. You can submit the dossier with waivers that the data is not yet available. So this is the blue part of the text I tried to highlight here. If you submit a dossier with waiver statement explaining why you are currently unable to provide all relevant test summaries, the dossier will still be accepted and you will still get the registration number. And you are then advised to provide the data as soon as possible or as soon as they become available to you, either as the lead registrant or as the member of the joint registration. So you can basically file almost an empty registration dossier and add all the required information later on. And the most important part lies in this text down below in the last paragraph, that by doing so, by filing a full registration, even with the data waivers, that will put you in the same category as the grandfathering companies and as the downstream user import notifiers, because you will effectively get 2, 4, or 6 years extended registration deadline by which you should provide the full set of data within your dossier. So within the 2, 4, or 6 years, depending on your tonnage band and on the hazard profile of your substance, you should fill your dossier with all the required information, with all the required data. So again, this was a screenshot which I took earlier today. So this is completely up-to-date information. And that's it. That's what I wanted to mention, because these are the principal options how you can stay compliant now that the downstream user import notification deadline has passed. And now let's jump to the questions and answers. So I will start with the questions we got before the webinar itself. I can see one comment from Bernd, just a comment. There is no activity in the substance groups. I don't know if that refers to that there is no activity in the UK Reach IT system, or that there is no activity in the groups that Bernd experienced. Well, from our experience, there hasn't been much activity in the substance groups yet, but we have encountered several substance groups where some activity actually started. Andrea, if you have first-hand experience, please.
Yes, but I have mostly experience with substance groups where we are representing some company that wants to become the lead registrant, and when this company knows this, they usually contact everybody else in the substance group and ask them if it's okay for them to become the lead registrant. So I was a part of this negotiations, but to be honest, I don't have experience with other companies doing the same thing, but it should be done like this. This is why you have the Excel spreadsheet there in the substance group in the Comply with UK Reach system. And this is only providing the contact information. So this is completely up to the members of the substance groups.
Thank you. Yes, I have the same experience. Some of the discussions, especially concerning the lead registrant role, started, but not so much activity so far because everybody was really busy with the downstream user import notifications, and now everybody wanted to take a deep breath, and I guess the activities will start after New Year's, I guess. In the meantime, quite a few questions came. I first saw the question from Angelo. If you did not do a downstream user import notification, I understand you can register with waivers in dossier. Should you not do an inquiry first? No. Inquiry is always the first step. Then you can file the registration. Natasha asking about nominating the lead registrant. There are only 7 members of our substance group. What happens if nobody wants to be the lead registrant? Well, it is exactly the same as it was under EU REACH. Somebody at the end will have to step in and become the lead registrant. And typically it is driven by the necessity or the urgency for the registration. So typically either the company who desperately needs the registration at the end becomes the lead registrant, or the company which has the most data or the best access to data or the best opportunities to generate the necessary data. So at the end, somebody will need to become the lead registrant. Andra, did you see a question you would like to answer?
I can see the question from Natasha. They have grandfathered their EU registration, and she's asking, can we complete a full registration yet if our current letter of access does not allow us to use data for any purpose other than EU Reach? I would wait with this because you are not able to use this data for UK Reach and you already have your registration grandfathered. So you have the access to the substance group, so you know if there is a lead registrant yet or not. So you would discuss how to access the data or maybe have a new contract, new letter of access or something like that. And before this happens, you are covered by the grandfathering. That would be it from me, or if you have something else for it, Tomasz?
No, I fully agree. Unless you have access to data, there's not much you can do. You can do the registration with the waivers, but to fill out all the information, you of course need access to the data. Okay, Katinka is asking about the 12-year data protection period. So let's get to that. That's what I promised. These are the legal provisions under EU REACH and under UK REACH. So under EU REACH, to refresh our memory, the EU REACH introduced this provision that after 12 years, since the data were first used for registration under EU REACH, after 12 years period, you can use the data for the purposes of any other registration by another manufacturer or importer. And by data, I'm referring to study summaries or robust study summaries. So of course, you cannot use the data freely for any purposes. And this is just bound to study summaries and robust study summaries. So the information that you can find on ECHA website. And the UK REACH only added to that they will be acknowledging this from existing EU REACH registrations as well, but only from those which were submitted before 31st December 2020, so before the effective date of Brexit, which is enough for the time being, at least for the 2, 4, or 6 years registration deadlines. So if somebody already used the data under EU REACH registrations, you will be able to use them for your UK REACH registrations. You will be able to refer to the study summaries or robust study summaries if those data are older than 12 years. So the consolidated text of the UK REACH provision would look something like this, that any study summaries or robust study summaries of studies submitted in the framework of a registration under UK REACH or under EU REACH before 31st December 2020 and at least 12 years previously can be used for the purposes of registration by another manufacturer or importer. So now back to Katinka's question with regards to the 12-year rule. Under what legal principle do you lose intellectual property rights in another jurisdiction? Does this then also count for Korea or Turkey? I'm no expert on KKDAK in Turkey or Korea. I can ask my colleagues, our experts. I'm not sure how this works under Korean REACH or Turkish REACH, but under EU or UK REACH, it works exactly as I mentioned. So after 12 years, you can use the robust study summaries or study summaries for other registrations as well.
So we have a question from Monica. We did a downstream user import notification for UK legal entities, our importer legal entity in UK. We plan to make imports onwards January 2023, but then our volumes will be less than our normal volumes if we would have been importing since 2021. So if we want to register in December 2023 for a tonnage band more than 1,000 tons per year, but we did not import it so much as started in January 2023. Is it possible to do registration of tonnage band more than 1,000 without having reached the volume in 2023 and 2022? If I understand it right, I think you are asking about if you have lower tonnage band and you intend to register higher tonnage bands to be sure, because you know that you will have in the future tonnages coming, that this is fully possible. You can always register in a tonnage band that you have, or if you are planning to have higher tonnage band, you can register already in the higher tonnage band. The only thing that you wouldn't be able to do is to register in lower tonnage band that you actually have. So I wouldn't see any problem in registering in the highest tonnage band, even if you had a bit lower imports in the last years.
Thank you. I just answered one question online typing concerning the 12-year data protection period. Again, Paul was asking if the chemical safety reports are also available after 12 years. No, the 12-year data protection period applies only to study summaries or robust study summaries. So chemical safety reports are excluded from this and you will not be able to get to them even after 12 years. And then I was checking the question from Matthew, which is quite a typical scenario, and there is no easy way to handle this. Matthew is asking, when an EU company purchases formulated products and then sells to companies in the UK, and the original supplier is not disclosing the complete formulation, downstream user report notification could be submitted under unknown components. And Matthew is asking whether anything has been advised regarding how the UK company, without knowing the full composition or the components, how can they make sure that they declare everything in the formulation for the full registration? This is exactly the same as burdens or barriers, issues the companies from EU are facing when importing from non-EU to EU countries under EU REACH. So the only way is really to get the full information on the composition imported. Otherwise, you cannot be sure that you are compliant. So how this is typically addressed is through a trustee, through a third-party representative. So asking your supplier to provide this information to a trustee, of course, under strict rules, under strict contracts. So typically the trustee is some kind of lawyer company, attorney company, and strict rules and strict penalties would be applied if the disclosure would be, or if the arrangements of the contract would be breached. And then the attorneys confirm to you that what you are trying to register or what you have registered is sufficient to cover your registrations, or they do the registration on your behalf or on behalf of the non-EU supplier, and then just issue to you the confirmation that you are covered and compliant. This is also typically addressed by only representatives as well, who are covering then the composition of the products for the non-EU supplier. But until you have full information on the composition or some kind of statement, confirmation, declaration under strict contracts with somebody you trust and with somebody you can effectively prosecute if there's a non-compliance issue, before you have that, you have no security. I wish you a very peaceful remaining month before the Christmas, as peaceful as it can be. We are very happy for your time and for your attention. We will be looking forward to seeing you next year. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. And if you have any ideas for topics we should cover in our next webinars, we will be more than happy for any ideas. Thank you very much.